Go to your bathroom, turn off the lights, and look into the mirror. In less than a second, your brain executes a silent, terrifyingly complex calculation. You don't scream, you don't attack the glass, and you don't run away. You recognize the shape, the eyes, the flaws, with absolute mathematical certainty that you are the thing looking back. This simple act is a biological luxury. To almost every other living creature on this planet, that sheet of glass is a psychological weapon. Drop a mirror into a jungle and reality fractures. A leopard will spend hours trying to flank its own reflection. A songbird will exhaust itself to death attacking the rival in the glass. They are trapped in a permanent sensory illusion, unable to cross the invisible line between the world and myself. For centuries, science assumed this line was a wall. Humans were on one side, conscious, self-aware, cursed with the knowledge of their own existence. Animals were on the other, living machines driven by pure reaction. But in 1970, an experiment shattered this hierarchy, not with philosophy, but with a drop of red dye in a sleeping chimpanzee. Gordon Gallup didn't want to speculate. He wanted to trap the mind in a corner. He took a group of chimpanzees and drugged them until they were completely unconscious. Total chemical paralysis. While they were in the dark, Gallup did something permanent. He painted a bright red odorless mark right above their eyebrows, a spot they could never see, never smell, and never feel. If they woke up and lived their lives, they would never know it was there, unless they looked into a mirror. The tension in that lab when the primates woke up was absolute. This wasn't a standard data collection. It was a high-stakes test of evolutionary biology. If the chimp woke up, looked at the mirror, and reached out to touch the cold glass, it meant the brain was blind to itself. It meant the animal thought the reflection was just another chimp with a weird red face. For hours, nothing happened. Then, a single chimpanzee walked up to the glass. It froze. Its eyes locked onto the red spot. In that fraction of a second, the evolutionary wall collapsed. The chimp didn't strike the mirror. It slowly raised its own hand, bypassed the glass entirely, and pressed its fingers against its own skin. It rubbed the dye, looked at its sticky fingertips, and smelled them. The animal had made the ultimate logical leap. That shape in the glass isn't a stranger. It is me. But when scientists tried to replicate this success across other brilliant species, the mirror delivered a series of devastating failures. Dogs, cats, and highly intelligent monkeys failed completely. Then came the tragedy of the gorillas. Gorillas possess massive, highly developed brains. Yet, when placed before the mirror, they consistently flunked. They became aggressive or ignored it entirely. For years, science written them off as incapable of self-reflection. They missed the biological context. In gorilla society, a direct, prolonged stare is not an act of curiosity. It is a declaration of war. It is an invitation to a fight to the death. When a gorilla looks into a mirror, it doesn't see its identity. It sees a massive rival committing a fatal social insult. The gorilla's failure wasn't stupidity. It was fear. It was an existential rule. Look away or die. To find true self-awareness, scientists had to look somewhere entirely unhuman. They went to the Bronx Zoo in 2006 to an Asian elephant named Happy. Happy was isolated in a yard with a mirror 8 feet tall. An elephant's world is not built on vanity, yet Happy did something no monkey could do. She walked to the glass, looked at the giant painted X on her forehead, and spent hours using her trunk to probe the mark. An elephant's brain diverged from the human lineage over 100 million years ago. Yet here, under a stark New York sky, a 4-ton mammal was experiencing the exact same internal realization as a human adult. The concept of self was not a human invention. It was an evolutionary destination that completely different species were reaching on their own. This is where the story turns back on us. The mirror test has a fatal, arrogant flaw. It assumes that every mind in the universe operates like a human eye. We are visual primates. If we can't see it, we don't believe it. But a dog lives in a completely different dimension, a shifting, hyper-detailed universe of molecules and scent. A dog's visual memory is weak, but its olfactory cortex is a supercomputer. To a dog, a visual reflection is a lie. It has no scent, no temperature, no breath. The dog doesn't fail the mirror test because it lacks a mind. It fails because it is too smart to believe an optical illusion that smells like nothing. To expose this human bias, researcher Alexandra Horowitz inverted the experiment. She stopped using light and started using waste. She took a group of dogs and presented them with canisters of their own urine. Then, she presented them with their own urine mixed with a neutralizing chemical that altered its scent profile. The dogs didn't glance at the normal canister, they already knew it, but when they reached the altered version of their own smell, they stopped. They spent significantly longer analyzing the data. They realized that their personal olfactory signature had been compromised. The conclusion was a direct hit to human scientific pride. The dogs didn't fail the test of self-awareness. The scientists failed to ask the question in a language the dog could speak. In 2019, the entire psychological framework of human exceptionalism was permanently broken by an organism the size of your finger, the Cleaner Wrasse. This is a fish with a brain smaller than a grain of rice. It lives in coral reefs, cleaning parasites off larger predators. It is not an elephant. It does not have a cortex. It has no language. Scientists placed a mirror inside their tank, fully expecting the fish to live in a permanent state of territorial aggression. And at first, they did. They fought the glass. But then, the tiny fish did something that caused an immediate panicked crisis in the scientific community. It stopped fighting. It began swimming swimming upside down only when in front of the mirror, testing if the phantom copied its posture. The researchers, desperate to prove this was a fluke, injected a brown parasite-like gel directly into the fish's throat, a spot it could only see via the reflection. The fish swam past the mirror, saw the brown spot on its reflection, and immediately dove to the bottom of the tank. It violently scraped its throat against the rough gravel, swam back up to the glass, and inspected its neck to see if the mark was gone. This wasn't just a quirky animal trick. It was a mathematical catastrophe for psychology. If a creature with a microscopic brain can pass the exact same golden standard test used to prove the high-level intelligence of chimps and humans, then the test is broken. Either the fish possesses a deep internal consciousness that we thought required billions of neurons, or the means consciousness is cheap and everywhere mirror test doesn't measure consciousness at all. It just measures a basic physical calculation. The elite club was destroyed by we like to think we are looking out at a clear, objective world. We aren't. Every species on Earth is trapped inside its own biological prison, a sensory bubble shaped by what it needs to survive. The chimpanzee needs to map its social rivals. The elephant needs to remember its multi-generational lineage. The dog needs to track the invisible chemical history of the Earth. And the cleaner fish needs to spot a parasite on a predator's skin. The mirror is a human freak accident. No animal in nature was ever meant to see itself with this level of crystalline, artificial clarity. Nature doesn't care about philosophy, and it doesn't care about your ego. It only cares about efficiency. When you look into that glass at night, you aren't seeing a monument to human superiority. You are looking at a brain that was forced to build the concept of me just to keep track of them. And somewhere out there in the dark, in the ocean, and in the dirt, other minds are looking right back through their